So I'm talking with Yulin Wang, who is, where are you anyway?
I'm in Santa Barbara, California.
So you're in Santa Barbara, California, but I'm on Long Island, and in the emergency room. Similar to the emergency room I was in the Hudson Valley about 2 months ago. And boy, I would have liked to have had you there when I had my stroke.
Science writer Andrew Revkin is here to talk about a stroke that he suffered 2 years ago. Andy, what did we just hear?
Well, there's a guy named Yulin Wang who's an inventor and an engineer, and he came up with a way for the world's best neurologist to be at any bedside evaluating a potential stroke. And when you've been through the experience of having to wait for a diagnosis on a hot day on a weekend, or if you're in a rural emergency room, you want to have the best neurological care you can have. And there's now, because of technology, there's no reason why you can't have that connection made.
So talk about what happened to you 2 years ago, this July 4th weekend, right?
Right. I was running in the woods with my very fit son who had just spent time in the Israeli army. And so he's a rugged guy. I'm like this lapsed middle-aged non-runner. But I was determined to kind of get back into shape. We're running up a hill. Beautiful day, woods, kind of sun and shade mottled woods. And then slowly I started realizing my left eye, after really, kind of running too hard, I took a rest, and my left eye was telling me that the world was Paisley. But the rest of my brain was saying that's not true, so I knew that something was wrong. And I thought maybe it was the light in the woods. So once we got down back down to the road, I realized I was basically 1/4 blind. My left eye was half blind.
How long after you took the baby aspirin until you got into the emergency room?
That was about an hour, and then it was a couple hours of evaluation. They were about to send me home. This was a suburban hospital that's listed in New York State as a stroke center, but it was a 4th of July weekend, and I wasn't adequately evaluated. And then I sort of said, well, maybe, have you tried, I suggested that they try carotid ultrasound, they use this ultrasound to look at things. And the reason it came to mind is my GP, months earlier, just as a middle-aged recommendation, had said he liked everyone to get a carotid ultrasound to just check the health of your arteries. And so I said maybe something did go wrong there. And so they consulted with my eye doctor by phone, and he thought it was a good idea, and they did. And then that's when I heard this ultrasound technician say these words that I can still hear: "There's no blood flow in your left carotid artery." I'm like, hello? Why? How can I be conscious talking to you if you think of your carotid arteries as something fairly vital? And of course, part of my brain was saying, oh, there's collateral circulation, your brain gets blood from both sides, and all these cool things that evolution did for us to make sure that even if you lose one carotid, you don't necessarily die right away. So that's when they got serious, and they took me they transferred me to a bigger regional hospital, and put me on a strong blood thinner. But by then, whatever was starting to happen in my carotid artery had already been playing out. And that night, I had a stroke, such that the next morning I woke, and this hand wasn't working, and I didn't have any balance, and my speech wasn't affected, but I had a splitting headache, and essentially the MRIs showed that indeed I had had a stroke.
And at that point, the doctors informed you that this is what you had had.
Yeah.
And talk about what went on afterward.
Well, then basically you get on Coumadin, in my case, AKA rat poison, another strong anticoagulant, and they just were waiting for my vessel to sort of resolve. It can slowly, in some cases, you don't need to you don't have to have surgery. Some people end up with surgery with a stent, a little support structure inside the artery. I didn't need. And then I started reporting while I was in the hospital for a week, getting used to the Coumadin, and I learned a lot of disturbing things about stroke.
Talk about that.
The top cause of disability in America. Talking about billions of dollars in lost productivity and all that trauma to families, plus incapacitation of people. It's one of the leading causes of death. 130,000 deaths from stroke. And the other big thing you learn when you go through this is the mantra of stroke care people, which is time is brain, which means basically time wasted is brain lost. And a lot of them prefer to talk of these not as strokes, but as brain attacks. They want to convey that this is an urgent situation. If your body is misbehaving, there's a friend of mine, a scientist, a marine scientist, just recently said to me that she remembered my piece when she was having weird symptoms. She went to the hospital. Her symptom was different. She didn't have the Paisley eyes. She had what she called word salad. which means she was trying to explain something to her husband, but the words coming out of her mouth were not the words she wanted to be coming out of her mouth.
But these are signs that something is amiss in your brain.
And there are very specific things to look for in people: a drooping part of the face, obviously misuse of language, disorientation, balance. And when you see those things, it's so easy. Many of these are symptoms that are really easy to just kind of slough off and just kind of go back to work. But if you do, you're just endangering yourself.